Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu, and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at BT08, and BT08 offers us lots of new and powerful cards to build some new and exciting decks with, especially on a budget. And today's deck that I'm going to be taking a look at is going to be a budget-friendly version of the Mamemon deck. So the Mamemon deck is more of a meme or casual deck. You play more for fun, but there's still lots of really strong things that this deck can do to surprise the opponent. I wouldn't recommend taking this into high-level competitive events, but it's still a fun deck to mess around with nonetheless, just because the Mamemon package is currently incomplete, and it leaves the door open for lots of generic black cards to help fill in some of those gaps, to flesh and round out the deck, on top of all of our Mamemon-based synergies that we're already going to be playing around with. So what the Mamemon deck is essentially trying to do is it's trying to rake the top cards of our deck, so that way we could try to free cast extra Mamemons to apply additional pressure onto the opponent. So, without further ado, onto the deck profile. Starting off with the Digitama, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Pagumon. If you wanted to run a 5th Digitama, you could. I just didn't find a 5th Digitama to be useful because a lot of Black's Digitamas require specific setups and synergies in order to be made useful. And Pagumon is one of the only ones that doesn't, with his inheritable on delete ability, where we get to reveal the top card of our deck, and if it's a Black Digimon, we get to add it into our hand, otherwise it goes to the bottom, also adding some extra consistency to how the deck wants to flow and function. Next, on to the rookies, I'm going to be running 4 copies of ToyAgumon. So we're only using ToyAgumon from BT02 for his inheritable ability of Reboot to add some extra resilience to our Digimon, and we could even possibly tech the deck to incorporate more Reboot-based synergies. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Chuumon. So Chuumon is going to be that anti-meta floodgate rookie to try to stop the opponent's memory manipulating shenanigans with his all turns ability, where your opponent can't gain memory except by Tamer effects, forcing them to deal with Chuumon before they can make some of their plays more efficient or powerful. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Junkmon. So Junkmon is in the deck for a very similar reason as ToyAgumon, where we're just trying to use him for his inheritable ability, which is generically decent. So his inheritable ability is an on-delete ability where we could gain a memory, so we could use this offensively to try to attack into the opponent's security to have our Digimon get deleted to gain some extra tempo, or we could use it defensively to try to take away the opponent's tempo if they delete our Digimon during their turn. And then the last rookie of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Chuumon. So Chuumon is in the deck just because it's a nice security threat. Even though he won't be able to play himself for free out of our security, he still has a pretty annoying ability where at the end of the battle, we get to de-digivolve 1 on one of the opponent's Digimon to try to stop and slow down some of their actions. Next, on to the champions, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Numemon. So Numemon is in the deck just because it's a very tempo-efficient card. Whether we're hard playing it or digivolving it, it doesn't matter. We're just trying to use him to easily climb our stages with. So him naturally having a low play cost of 3 and a low evo cost of 1 makes him the perfect card for the job. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Mekanorimon. So Mekanorimon is going to be the deck's dedicated blocker, and he's a really good blocker, not only just because he's a really easy blocker to hard play, but he also is one of the best blockers in the game, where he has this ability where during the opponent's turn, when this Digimon deletes an opponent's Digimon by battle and survives, then we get to unsuspend it, basically allowing him to wall out anything that's smaller than him indefinitely, for the drawback of him not being able to attack. But he's in the deck mostly because he's just one of the best walls that we have access to. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Numemon. So Numemon is in the deck just because he is another security Digimon to hopefully pop out of our security and play himself for free, so that way we could use him as fodder to digivolve up our chain with. And at worst, if he's stuck in our hand, we could just digivolve him normally, or we could even hard play him for a really cheap hard play cost to be able to climb our stages with as efficiently as we possibly can. And then the last champion of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Thundermon. So Thundermon is in the deck primarily just because he has this ability where his name is also going to be treated as Mamemon, so that way he can work with all of our Mame-based synergies. And then on top of that, stat-wise, he's actually a pretty decent champion to be playing around with. The most attractive thing is his low play cost, so that way we could try to utilize him as another pseudo-rookie in case we don't see any of our rookies, allowing us to run a slightly lower rookie count than normal. Next, on to our ultimates, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Big Mamemon. So Big Mamemon is another Mamemon for the deck to take advantage of, and even though he doesn't have any abilities, he's just a very highly statted card. Being a level 5 with 10,000 DP naturally just makes him a really big body. Next up, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Mamemon. So this is another Mamemon to take advantage of all of our Mamemon-based synergies, on top of the fact that he's a pretty okay level 5 to just be sitting around on the field, because he has a Decoy Black ability to try to save our other Black Digimon. So what the Decoy Black ability is when one of our other Black Digimon would get deleted, then we get to delete this Digimon instead to prevent the initial target from being deleted. So that's really good because it can help save our level 6 when it's going to try to be deleted by some of the opponent's card effects, if it is. And then he himself has a nice on-delete ability for us to take advantage of for comboing with his Decoy Black ability to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with a play cost of 7 or less, so it's just acting as some good removal on top of trying to help save some of our other Digimon. And then the last ultimate of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Catch Mamemon. So yes, this is another Mamemon for us to take advantage of, but this is another really good card to interact with our various other Mamemons. So he has a nice when Digivolving ability, where we get to return up to 4 Digimon with Mamemon in their names from our hand or trash to the top of our deck in any order. Then if we returned at least 3 or more cards using this effect, we get to de-Digivolve one of the opponent's Digimon. It's not necessarily super great, but it does help refill our deck to try to line our synergies up to play Mamemons off the top of our deck for free, and it's de-Digivolving the opponent's Digimon, which even though it's not necessarily acting as the greatest removal, it still could be annoying for the opponent to be dealing with. And then the last Digimon and only level 6 of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Bancho Mamemon. So Bancho Mamemon is kind of the glue that's tying it all together to act as the big powerhouse punch for the deck. So he has a nice when Digivolving ability where we get to reveal the top 3 cards of our deck, and then for each of the opponent's Digimon in play, we get to play 1 Digimon card with Mamemon in its name and a memory cost of 10 or less from among them for free. And then we have to trash the remaining cards. So this just allows us to use Catch Mamemon to try to rig the top cards of our deck to be able to go into a Bancho to be able to play our other Mamemons for free off the top. So there's just a lot of synergy between how this deck wants to be playing to try to get out our Mamemons as efficiently as we possibly can. Then he does have an All Turns ability where while you have another Digimon with Mamemon in its name in play, then this Digimon gains security attack +1, so he could try to deal some extra damage onto the opponent. Next, onto the options, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Senbon Doken. So Senbon Doken is another card that's interacting with all of our Mamemon-based synergies because its main ability states that we get to reveal the top 3 cards of our deck, and we get to play any number of Digimon with Mamemon in their names whose play cost adds up to 15 or less, and play them for free. Then we get to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with a play cost of 6 or less for each Digimon we played off of this ability, and then we have to trash the remaining cards, also being a nice security threat to activate its main, so it's just another really good card to try to free play some of our Mamemons and try to control the opponent's field at the same time. And then the last option of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Black Memory Boost. So this is kind of a flex spot of the deck. If you wanted to change it out for any other option, feel free to do so. But Black Memory Boost is just a really good, solid consistency tool, which this deck kind of needs. So what this card is doing for the deck is it allows us to reveal the top 4 cards of our deck, add a Black Digimon from among them into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom in any order. And then we get to place this card into the battle area to use its secondary main ability of Delay to be able to gain 2 memory at a later turn, with the security ability of placing it into the battle area, so at worst we're able to gain that 2 memory to make our plays more efficient. And then lastly, onto the Tamers, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Izzy. So this is the BT04 Black Izzy, and this is going to be the dedicated memory fixer for the deck, where if our memory is ever less than 3, he'll just hard set it to 3, so that way we could try to make our plays as efficient as we possibly can. Then on top of that, he's actually pretty decent with an on-play ability to help rig the top cards of our deck, where we get to reveal the top 3 cards of our deck, and if all of the revealed cards are black, then we get to gain a memory and place the cards that we revealed back on the top in any order. So if we need to try to help fix the top of our deck in a specific way, Izzy is here to help that while being one of the most efficient memory fixing tamers. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Izzy and Joe. So Izzy and Joe is a really solid duo tamer for us to use in the deck just because we're not actively trying to delete the opponent's Digimon, so they could end up with a field of 2 or more Digimon to be able to trigger Izzy and Joe's ability, where at the start of our turn, if the opponent has 2 or more Digimon in play, then we get to gain 2 memory. So this in combination with Izzy could start our turn off with 5 memory to be able to line up a very powerful and easy plays. Then on top of all of that, he also has another upside for when the opponent is trying to control our field, because this is more of a go wide aggro style of deck, where during the opponent's turn, when one of your black Digimon is deleted, we get to suspend this tamer to be able to draw a card, and we do have some other on delete based synergies that we could line up in combination with this to make it so that the opponent really doesn't want to try to delete our Digimon. And then the last tamer of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Mimi. So this is the BT03 Purple Mimi, and this card is in the deck mostly to try to make our Senbon Doken a little bit cheaper, just because 9 to play that card is a little on the high side for what it does. And the fact that Mimi also has the upside to try to tax the opponent for using their options also makes her even more valuable while giving us a purple source to line up some different synergies if we so feel like, including various different colors into the deck. But as far as other options and tech packages that you can include in the deck, there's still a lot of room to be playing around with. So if you wanted to, you could scrap the whole low ends that I currently have and just basically play Commandramon plus Mamemon and fuse those packages together, just because those 2 packages are kind of incomplete packages, so you could run them with basically whatever else you want to run them with. And we do have some other rookies for us to try to take advantage of, like another Floodgate in the form of the brand new Chuumon, to run in combination with our Chuumon to try to reduce the opponent's actions as much as we possibly can. Then, as I stated before, we do have various synergies that we could line up. So if you wanted to run a little bit more of a reboot package, then we do have some reboot cards to interact with. And we even have a Mamemon that also has reboots and can help interact with our level 7s, which we do have level 7s for this card to be pulling from, in the form of Zwart Defeat and in the form of Omnimon Alter S. So if you even wanted to play level 7s in the deck, then you definitely could, but some of the level 7s might be a little bit expensive, but they're really strong and really worth it, like Omnimon Zwart being another fantastic card to synergize in combo with the deck to be able to revive our Mamemons and be able to act as some large body removal, on top of just being a really good card himself. And then speaking of other really good cards themselves, we even could run something like Grumblemon just because we're already running tamers, and this is just an easy to use level 4 for the deck to incorporate. But as far as some supporting level 6s, we do have some really good level 6s that we could use generically. So you could use something like Kreskarumon to try to help free play more Mamemons off the top of our deck, which we could help rig with Catch Mamemon, and we could help rig it with Izzy, so we can make his ability as consistent as we possibly can. Or if you're just looking for reboot synergy and just a generic card for us to use, then we even do have the BT05 Black Metal Garurumon, just because he natively has reboot, and his Digiburst ability can help burn the opponent's security or delete their low-level Digimon. But if you are just looking for some extra punch and removal, then you need to look no further than Genkumon. And then as far as some other really good options that we have, Black has a decent option selection for us to use. Unfortunately, we don't have that great of DP boosting, but regardless, we do have some good protection in the form of Breath of the Gods to try to give our Digimon reboot in case we are playing with some reboot-based synergies, on top of adding the protection from having our Digimon's DP be reduced, tucked, or bounced. Then if we do want some security threats, Breath of the God is still a good security threat to stop the opponent's attacks outright, and we even have Ultimate Flare as some really good hard removal that's interacting with the Digivolve. Or if we just want hard removal, then we can just play Iron Fisted Onslaught, which is currently Black's Gaia Force. Or if you wanted to tech the deck to be a little bit more aggressive, we could play something like Pride Memory Boosted to be able to basically use this card to play our level 4 or lowers for free off the top and still get that delay ability to gain some memory later. But if you did just want to run another generic memory fixing tamer, then we even have Hero as a really good card to help dip into red and to be a good memory fixer and to interact with our level 5 or higher Digimon by actually giving them some DP boosting to make them a little bit more threatening because they're going to have a higher chance of living attacking into the opponent's security with. But that goes to show all of the different types of support that you could include inside of the Mamemon package just because it is an incomplete package. And I think this is going to be a really fun and solid core or shell to be working around with it to be able to make and customize it your own Mamemon based deck. And this deck could get more support into the future to be fleshed out and made better. So it's definitely not a deck to sleep on, especially with the majority of it being able to be built on a budget. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.